It was announced just at the end of the month, September 30th, that the dicastery for consecrated life and apostolic societies would be making an official visitation of the Fraternity of St. Peter, um, which is going to be carried out over the next, several periods, the several months likely. The statement says that this particular visitation was called for, quote, in order to deepen the understanding of this society of apostolic life, of pontifical right, and to offer the most appropriate support to its journey of following Christ. When I read that, end quote, when I read that, it made me think of a famous quote of Ronald Reagan. He said, one of the scariest things you'll ever hear, someone knocks on your door and says, I'm the federal government, I'm here to help. And that's exactly, I thought of that quote when I read this. This particular dicastery and its head, Cardinal João Braz de Avis, when they say we're here to help, run, right? This is the same cardinal, the same dicastery that destroyed the Franciscans of the Immaculata after a visitation. It's one that's destroyed and closed Carmels, we've reported on. It's got its sights on the one in Elmhurst, shut down the one in Philadelphia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Essentially, when they show up to help you in a, quote, appropriate way, they're here to shut you down, is usually what it means. Again, I think there's a lot of people, no big deal, this is normal. I don't think you can think anything. What the normal MO of this cardinal is anyone that's mildly traditional leaning. And the Franciscan Immaculatas, they were not traditionalists. They were conservative. They were moving towards the traditional mass, but they were, blown up. They were destroyed. And by the way, I will note this announcement, this official announcement was signed by Braz de Avis and Sister Simona Brambilla. So again, now we're going to have a nun who is the secretary of the dicastery investigating, looking into a priestly society. That's sort of what Francis has done to the church. We don't need ordained deacons, and he's just putting them in positions of power in governing the church, a role reserved to priests. The church is governed. It's one of the characters of the priest, particularly of the bishop, to govern. Well, in this thing signed by the nun, it says, in the context of the process of accompanying the institutes of consecrated life and the societies of apostolic life that were previously established by the Pontifical Commission Ecclesiae Dei, and which Pope Francis motu proprio Traditionis Custodes has placed under the jurisdiction of this dicastery. That they mention, I think, is really important. We got you now. Right? The Ecclesiae Dei used to be there, and we are looking at you under Traditionis Custodes. Again, I think my prediction on this one is nothing good can come of this. I think there's going to be some kind of a report that among some of the members, there's a willfulness, a lack of communion, a lack of integration into the wider church. And we recommend that there's a regular practice of celebrating the new Mass, of concelebrating, so as to express the spirit of synodality and communion with the Vicar of Christ, whose term they'll use, even though he won't call himself that. I think that's likely where this is heading. Given Traditionis Custodes. They're trying to put a positive spin on this. The Priestly Fraternity of St. Peter said that, quote, as the prefect of the dicastery himself made clear to the Superior General and his assistants during a meeting in Rome, visit does not originate in any problems of the fraternity, but is intended to enable the dicastery to know who we are, how we are doing, and how we live, so as to provide us with any help we might need. They don't really seem to need much help. I mean, they're booming with vocations. They're much more stable than almost every other diocese in terms of, having numbers, having people wanting to join them. and about all the dicastery could bring is instability. So I get they're trying to put a, like, hey, they didn't say there's any problems, but any of these visitations, I don't think it's likely to find something positive coming out of it. I can't imagine them saying everything's great here, go away. I don't know. Do you disagree? You think I'm too pessimistic about this?
No, I'm definitely pessimistic about this. I think before I say what I'm going to say, I want to preface it by saying, any critiques of the Fraternity of St. Peter, this is not coming from a sort of partisan standpoint where, oh, well, your church needs to have the double hearts instead of the double keys. That's not what any of these critiques are based on. But I will say there is something a bit disturbing about one's position when you hear that the authorities are going to come for a visitation, that you recoil in absolute fear.
Yeah.
There's something there that I think needs to be addressed, because if one's position is that you hold that the traditional Latin Mass is better than the Novus Ordo, that the Novus Ordo has systematic problems with it, that there are problems in the Second Vatican Council, well, then do you really think that the dicasteries and Rome herself, do you think they have no reason to visit, to make a visitation to the fraternity at that point? I think everybody's going to have to admit that Rome has a certain interpretation, even though they've not expressed it necessarily in a infallibly magisterial way, but they have an interpretation regarding the Roman Rite, that there is only one Roman Rite, one expression, and that needs to be the Novus Ordo, and that the Second Vatican Council is to be interpreted in these sort of liberalizing ways. And I think the Fraternity of St. Peter is going to have to struggle with how to understand this, because they've chosen to compromise with these authorities, and these authorities are now, and in a sense, because of this deal, rightfully going to make sure that the fraternity is going to obey their end of the bargain, which was this compromise
Mm.
with Rome. So, in a sense, I don't think the fraternity should be surprised when they decided to go away from our Archbishop Lefebvre. This is sort of part of the deal. You're under the eye of the current authorities in Rome, and so I am not comfortable with the position that leaves the faithful, leaves these holy priests, these priests that are doing a great job. They're weaponless against obvious wolves in sheep's clothing that are trying to destroy the Latin Mass. So I'm not surprised by this visitation. I'm not sure what all of this panic is. It obviously comes with the deal that they've made. So maybe I'm being too negative towards the former Ecclesia Dei groups, but I think we have to be honest here when assessing it.
Yeah, I think we've moved beyond wolves in sheep clothing. I think we have wolves in wolf's clothing now.
Yeah.
It's gotten that bad. But before we leave this, a somewhat related note, I'm sure as many of you have heard, there was a very sad announcement last weekend that the beginning of this week, that Bishop Tissier de Malaret, one of the bishops of the Society of St. Pius X, fell down a flight of steps. What we knew so far is that he fractured his skull, and the medical authorities actually put him into a coma, induced a coma, which is a treatment sometimes when you've had a brain injury, a head injury, to try to prevent damage from occurring. The last that I have heard is that he was still in the hospital. He was coming out of the coma. He was he was healing, but they don't know what the long term effects will be. So we should certainly pray for him. He is one of the last direct links back to Archbishop Lefebvre. He's one of the seminarians that went to Lefebvre in '69 and was instrumental in persuading Archbishop Lefebvre to found a cone to start a seminary. He obviously is one of the four bishops chosen by Lefebvre to be consecrated, and has really traversed the globe tirelessly, bringing the sacraments and the faith. And so we should certainly pray for him, but it's certainly creating a workload crisis for the other two remaining bishops in the society, as it doesn't appear, again, pray he will have a good recovery, but it doesn't appear anytime soon he will be traveling. And if you look at their confirmation schedules, if you've ever seen them posted, they're pretty grueling. So now the two are taking up that slack. So we should pray for them. as well, and make sure they're not on any plane together.
Right, that's what I was about to bring that up.
Yeah,
Father Hess, of course, begged those bishops, don't get on a plane together in case it crashes, because I think it's something for all of us to understand
yeah,
how much good these bishops have done.
yes,
No matter, yeah, of course, the Ecclesia Dei groups have done a great job spreading Catholic tradition, but if those three and before four bishops within the Society of St. Pius X, if they were not around and the Ecclesia Dei groups were just were suppressed by the current authorities, there would be no there would be no more traditional offering religious institutes. And so we have to be very thankful for these bishops, and I think the
yes,
least we can do is offer up a rosary or two for Bishop
yes,
Tissier.
definitely.